Here's why you can understand English perfectly when someone speaks slowly. But the moment a native speaker talks at normal speed, it sounds like gibberish. Hi, everyone. I'm Marcie, and today I'm going to share something that changed everything for my students. And I think it's going to help you too. You see, most English learners think they need to study more grammar or memorize more vocabulary, but that's not actually the problem. The real issue is that native speakers don't talk the way textbooks teach. We blend words together, we drop sounds, we use phrases that make no logical sense if you translate them word by word. And today, I'm going to teach you how to understand and use real conversational English so you can finally feel confident in everyday situations. Now, before we dive in, I want you to think about this. Have you ever been in a situation where you prepared what you wanted to say in English? You practiced it in your head, but when the moment came, the other person said something you didn't expect, and suddenly your mind went blank? That happens because we often learn English in a controlled environment. But real conversations are messy, spontaneous, and full of expressions that don't make literal sense. So let's start with something super practical. Imagine you're at work and your colleague says, "Hey, can you give me a hand with this?" Now, if you're thinking literally, you might be confused because they're not asking for your actual hand, right? This is an idiom, and it simply means, "Can you help me?" Native speakers use phrases like this all the time, and if you don't know them, conversations become really difficult to follow. Another one you'll hear constantly is, "I'm swamped." This doesn't mean someone is drowning in water. It means they're extremely busy. So if your coworker says, "Sorry, I can't join the meeting, I'm swamped," they're saying they have too much work to do. Here's another common one. Let's say you're in a meeting and someone says, "Let's touch base later." What does that even mean? It sounds strange, right? But it's actually a very normal business phrase that means "let's talk again later" or "let's check in with each other." You'll hear this in emails, in meetings, in casual office conversations, and now you know exactly what it means. Now, let's talk about something that confuses almost every English learner, and that's how native speakers connect their words. We don't say each word separately like robots. We blend sounds together, and this is called connected speech. For example, if I say, "Do you want to go?" it doesn't sound like, "Do you want to go?" It sounds more like, "Do you want to go?" We drop sounds, we merge words, and this is completely normal. Let me give you another example. Instead of saying, "I'm going to call him," we usually say, "I'm gonna call him." Or instead of "give me that," we say, "gimme that." This isn't lazy English. This is natural English. And once you start recognizing these patterns, listening becomes so much easier. Another thing that makes understanding native speakers difficult is that we use a lot of filler words. These are words that don't really add meaning to the sentence, but we use them while we're thinking or to keep the conversation flowing. Words like uh, you know, like I mean, so, well. For example, someone might say, "So I was thinking, maybe we could, try a different approach." If you're listening for every single word, this can sound confusing. But the main message is just, maybe we could try a different approach. The other words are just fillers. Native speakers use them naturally, and you don't need to focus on them. Just listen for the key information. Now, let's talk about small talk, because this is where a lot of learners feel stuck. You might be great at discussing work topics or giving presentations, but when it comes to casual chatting, you don't know what to say. The good news is that small talk follows certain patterns, and once you know them, it becomes much easier. For example, when you see a colleague in the morning, you can say, hey, how's it going? Or how's your day so far? These are simple, friendly ways to start a conversation. And here's the thing. When someone asks you, how's it going? They're not expecting a long, detailed answer. You can simply say, good, thanks. How about you? Or, not bad, staying busy. That's it. You don't need to overthink it. Another common small talk topic is the weather. I know it sounds boring, but people talk about the weather all the time. You can say things like, it's really nice out today. Or, can you believe how cold it is? Or, I hope it doesn't rain later. These are easy conversation starters, and they help you connect with people in a relaxed way. Now, let's move on to something really important, and that's how to handle situations when you don't understand something. A lot of learners feel embarrassed to admit they didn't catch what someone said, so they just smile and nod, but that can lead to misunderstandings. It's totally okay to ask for clarification. You can say things like, sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it? Or, I'm not sure I understood. Could you say that again? Or even, sorry, what was that? These phrases are polite and natural, and native speakers use them too when they don't hear something clearly. Another useful phrase is, what do you mean by that? Let's say someone uses a word or expression you're not familiar with. You can ask, what do you mean by that? And they'll explain it in simpler terms. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It shows you're engaged in the conversation and that you want to understand. Now, I want to teach you some phrases that will make you sound more fluent and natural. These are what I call conversation smoothers. They help you respond to what someone says without having to think of a complicated answer. For example, if someone tells you some news, you can say, oh, really? Or, that's interesting. Or, I didn't know that. These responses keep the conversation going. If someone shares a problem with you, you can say, that sounds tough, or I can imagine, or that must be frustrating. These show empathy and understanding. And if someone tells you about something good that happened, you can say, that's great, or good for you, or that's awesome. Simple responses like these make you sound natural and engaged. Now, let's talk about giving your opinion, because this is something you'll need to do in meetings, in casual conversations with friends and colleagues. A really useful phrase is, I think. For example, I think we should try a different approach, or I think that's a good idea. You can also say, in my opinion, or from my perspective, or the way I see it. These phrases help you share your thoughts in a polite and clear way. If you want to disagree with someone, but you want to be polite about it, you can say, I see what you're saying, but I think, or that's a good point. However, or I understand, but have you considered? These phrases let you disagree without sounding rude or aggressive. In English, being polite is really important, especially in professional settings. Another thing that makes native speakers hard to understand is how we ask questions in casual conversation. We don't always use perfect grammar. For example, instead of saying, where are you going? We might just say, where are you going? Or instead of, do you want some coffee? We say, want some coffee? This is very common in informal situations, so don't be surprised if you hear questions that don't follow the textbook structure. Now, I want to talk about email and written communication, because even though we're focusing on speaking, a lot of workplace English happens through email. And here's the thing. Emails in English follow certain patterns. When you start an email, you usually begin with a greeting, like hi or hello, followed by the person's name. Then you might say something like, I hope you're doing well, or I hope this email finds you well. These are polite opening lines. If you're writing to someone you don't know very well, you can be a bit more formal and say dear, followed by their name. When you're closing an email, you can use phrases like best regards, kind regards, thanks, best, or sincerely. The level of formality depends on who you're writing to. If it's your boss or a client, use best regards or kind regards. If it's a colleague you know well, you can just say thanks or best. And here's a tip. If you need something from someone, always be polite. Instead of saying, send me the report, say, could you please send me the report? Or, would you mind sending me the report when you get a chance? Adding please and when you get a chance makes your request sound much more polite and respectful. Now, let's talk about phone calls, because talking on the phone in English can be really intimidating. You don't have body language or facial expressions to help you, so you rely completely on listening and speaking. When you answer a call, you can say, hello, this is, followed by your name. If you're calling someone, you can say, hi, this is, and then explain why you're calling. For example, hi, this is Marcie. I'm calling about the meeting tomorrow. If you need to leave a voicemail, keep it short and clear. Say your name, why you're calling, and your phone number. For example, hi, this is Marcie. I'm calling to follow up on our conversation yesterday. Please give me a call back at, and then your number. Now, I want to teach you how to end conversations politely, because sometimes we need to leave or finish a call, and we don't want to be rude. If you're talking to someone and you need to go, you can say, I should probably get going, or I need to run, or I have to take off. These are all natural ways to signal that the conversation is ending. You can also say, it was great talking to you, or thanks for chatting, and then I'll talk to you soon, or see you later. These phrases make the ending smooth and friendly. On the phone, you can say, thanks for calling, or thanks for your time, and then talk to you soon. Now, here's something really important that I want you to remember. When you're learning English, you're going to make mistakes, and that's completely okay. Native speakers make mistakes too. What matters is that you're communicating and getting your message across. Don't aim for perfection, aim for connection. If you say something incorrectly and the other person understands you, that's a success. Over time, as you practice more, your grammar and pronunciation will naturally improve. But in the moment, focus on expressing yourself and engaging with the person you're talking to. I also want to give you some practical tips for improving your listening skills, because understanding native speakers is one of the biggest challenges for learners. First, expose yourself to real English as much as possible. Watch movies and TV shows, listen to podcasts, pay attention to how people actually talk. Don't just rely on textbook English. Second, try to watch or listen without subtitles sometimes. I know this is hard, but it trains your ear to catch words and phrases, even when you don't understand everything. Start with content that's a bit easier, and gradually work your way up to more challenging material. Third, focus on understanding the main idea rather than every single word. You don't need to know every word to follow a conversation. Listen for keywords and context. And finally, practice speaking as much as you can. Join conversation groups, find a language partner, talk to yourself in English if you have to. The more you use the language, the more confident you'll become. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a challenge. This week, I want you to try using at least 3 phrases that we talked about today in real conversations. Maybe it's saying, can you give me a hand, to a colleague? Or using a filler word like, when you're speaking. Or asking for clarification by saying, sorry, what was that? Small steps like this will help you sound more natural and build your confidence. Remember, learning English is a journey, not a race. Every conversation you have, every mistake you make, every new phrase you learn, it all adds up. Be patient with yourself, stay curious, and keep practicing. You're doing amazing, and I'm so proud of you for being here and working on your English. If you found this lesson helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel because I post new lessons every week to help you improve your real-world English skills. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future videos, leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I love hearing from you. All right, that's it for today's lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep practicing, keep learning, and remember, you've got this. See you next time.